Yeah, so we're
So you're gonna do that?
Do a presentation.
So we're gonna ask the board. You can tell, I can tell because you're kind of late.
I think I was very good. I've got equals here.
Exactly.
And
I have to like.
Do you want the thick one that has your resume?
Yeah. And when I do it, it's all like sitting down.
Oh,
If I'm not on
I
that.
can't believe you.
Oh, or I'll put it.
I used to stand. I can't tell you.
Go to the mail, look at it.
Wow, they're all together.
That's
You
weird.
want the dinner beforehand or something? We should start that tradition. I know, as I said, we should have ordered out. Carl, do we know if the mayor's here or no? Does anybody know if the mayor's here? All right, so we'll just move on.
He's not gonna be.
So,
I said I didn't think we had to, but I think.
all right. So let's start. We're gonna take out of order a couple things here. So we're gonna start with health and rec and then we'll bounce back to administrative efficiency. All right, so Mr. Wiltshire, please.
Call to order health and recreation, and we have one item on the agenda, discussion, free library book, kids at park, Mr. Thursday.
Yes, I want to introduce Emily Wiley to come on up here. She just was recently awarded $1,400 from the community, the Neighborhood Community Challenge, and her project is the Community Library Initiative, where they're going to build and install free library book boxes around the city and mostly in our parks, and filling them with donated books that they're going to be giving away to our youth here in the city. So I just want Emily to give a very brief presentation and her request for locations of these boxes, if you would.
To start, I have a couple of photos, I don't know if you want to pass them around between copy, to give you an idea of what they look like. That's the first one I have right now. It's in front of my home on 663 Crane Street. And the locations that we would like to put the first few libraries at are Woodlawn Park, Congress Street Park, Vale Park, Steinman's Park, Jerry Burrell, 10th and Webster, and Central Park.
Did you get all that? No.
Oh, I can go through them again.
Yeah, one more time, just for Sam.
Okay, so Woodlawn Park?
Yep.
Congress Street Park?
Yep.
Vale Park? Steinman's Park? Jerry Burrell? 10th and Webster? And Central Park.
Central.
And we will be requesting more parks and more locations throughout the city as we get more funding. That's just through the first set of funding, and also people who promised that they would like to also donate towards us building more. That's just through what we've gotten through the Schenectady Foundation for I Can Get Rich Challenge. Go ahead.
Can you just tell me a little bit about the maintenance plan for them once they're in place?
Pretty much. So I have them all built between myself and my father-in-law. We built the first one, and we're going to use concrete to put them in the ground, and I just continuously check on them. The Emily Willie Foundation is my team. We will be checking up on them. We thought that we were going to have to keep filling up the library, but the best part about it is we don't have to because the community is. And they're coming through and they're just putting books in it all the time, and they'll come to me and say, hey, we're looking for this book, we're looking for that book. Because they're like, oh, we want more books, or we've been able to really keep up with the demand so far. So anytime it looks like, oh, I have to go get more books from the shelf, because Hamilton Elementary School, they had their library basically redone, and over the summertime, about 5,000 books came to my mom's house.
Wow.
And we had to go through an inventory, all of those, and so we have books. So they'll be coming in and out of them.
And my only other question is the front where it's see-through, I assume is plexiglass.
Plexiglass, yes, not glass.
Great. And I also just want to take this opportunity to thank you for all the great work you do in the community, because you're really quite tireless in what you do.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Good work.
Thank you.
Any other questions for them?
Is there different selections of books? I mean, how do you decide what kind of books go in?
Well, we go through all of them, we make sure at least the first one, the ones that are donated aren't damaged. We have a lot of people who pledge to purchase new books. We go through for different, we picked basically for what's been in front of my house, what people have requested. So there's a lot of, on Crane Street, there's a lot of diverse families. We have a lot of Spanish-speaking families, so we have a lot of Spanish books. There are a lot of them that are English and Spanish, because we have a lot of youth there who don't have adults to read with them. And that was the point of my libraries, because we have really great public libraries in the city, especially with the new opening from Mount Pleasant branch, right? But we don't have a lot of adults that are there with our youth to bring them to get library cards and access to books. So the point was so they could get these books. So what I've learned through the kids coming and picking up the books is what they want. You know, we have some little kids that are maybe 7, 8 years old who are reading chapter books for teenagers. Oh my Lord, I didn't even know you, at your age, I wasn't reading books that were so big, you know, and they're like, oh, well, this was our homework assignment, and they don't do summer reading projects like they used to, but now they want to read in the summertime. You know, we have adults coming to us that are asking for lower grade reading books because they're starting to read on their own, and it's on their terms, so it's not embarrassing. It's like going to a free class in the library where they have to admit as an adult, like, I don't know how to read. So it's basically just based on what the community has asked for, and we're doing our best to provide for them.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then we're also going to try and tie it in with the Schenectady County Youth Bureau, our page-by-page summer reading program, where if any of these are summer lunch sites, which I believe a few of them are. Right now, we currently have 32 high school youth that will be reading at these sites to youth during the summer hours when the lunches are being served. So there'll be a nice partnership there, and you're working very closely with Karen Bradley, too,
Yes.
from the Schenectady County.
Yeah, she's definitely, she's our anchor organization through the Thriving Neighborhoods Challenge, so she's been like my mentor through this project, being able to get everything going.
And then one other question, Chris, I've got you over there. Just a question, before they dig, obviously, or look, who should they contact as far as placement of the pole and of the library box itself? Are you the contact?
You always call dig safe before you dig.
Can we go through your office?
Dig safe goes through my office.
So we want to make sure we do that. So we'll connect you. I'll email you.
We're all
Chris's
okay on
contact.
set.
I did pick the first few locations of parks, so yes.
Yeah, so I think it's important. We don't want to dig and go through one of our cables or something like that. Or one ourselves. All right. Anything else? All right. And so,
Thank you.
I'm sorry, it's your committee. My apologies. My goodness, everybody knows my
Anyone else?
committee. My apologies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For all you're doing.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
We'll recess health and rec, and then we'll come back. Mr. Ricky has an item we'd like to discuss later. Recess. Second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
My apologies.
No, it's okay.
Forgot.
Taken.
So administrative efficiency, this is our committee here. So we have first on the agenda is the Rotary, the clock installation, Ms. Peraza, please.
Yes, so Schenectady Rotary has a great project underway, and they're looking to place a gift to the city clock, and so we thought we could have them just talk a little bit about the program and what they're trying to accomplish. And I don't believe, according to the Corporation Council, we could vote on anything, but just so that we're aware of the project. I can ask you to come to the front of the
We're here, so we have our
the
cameras
viewing
remote
audience.
over there, and this microphone obviously is just for the TV.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Chris Henry. I'm the current president of Schenectady Rotary. In 2017, Schenectady Rotary celebrated its 100th anniversary in the city of Schenectady, and we thought we really needed to mark the occasion by making some sort of a, not necessarily monument, but a gift to the city to help celebrate and to be involved in the revitalization that's going on in downtown now. Multiple items were discussed, everything from sculpture to park benches and so on and so forth. We finally settled on a Rotary clock. You've seen some examples of clocks around the city of Schenectady and Saratoga, Albany. I have actually some paraphernalia for you all. I'm sorry, I only brought 4 copies, but anyone who would like them in particular.
Pass around, everybody can view them there. Yeah, or something, right?
You can see an example of the clock. Once we had come up with a viable model for the clock, we actually met with Mr. Relland, and discussing different possibilities, and he actually thinks it's the excellent possibility that we're looking at right now. We'd like to put it in the Erie Boulevard corridor, in front of what used to be the old Grossman's, the railroad underway passover revitalization project. Is that correct?
No acronym for that yet, Chris?
Not yet.
But it seems like a great project to open up a great space and connect it to other great things that are going on. So that would be the location. You have here the clock itself. Schenectady Rotary would like to gift the clock to the city. And it will be paid for by Schenectady Rotary and our member businesses, as well as a variety of other local businesses who would like to join in the venture.
Mr. Henry, can you introduce the other board members that are here?
Yes, we have Amy Bruley, who is our assistant secretary. We have Kim Rainey, who is one of our board of directors. We have Wayne Bruley, who is a member of the board of directors, and he is also our sergeant at arms for Club Eagles.
Very good.
We need one of those.
She's the order for us. But they are all members of the clock committee as well, and they have been instrumental in all of the work that has gone into choosing the clock, helping find a location. The clock has actually been made. It exists at this point in time, and it's getting installed and up and running.
Chris, you may want to comment that you plan to handle future maintenance.
Correct. We worked with the city for the installation and preparing the spot where it will go. We have actually included in the purchase price of the clock the actual installation from the Berger Clock Company, and would like to maintain it through a warranty system throughout its lifetime. The fee is nominal with warranties and stuff like that. They will actually come and repair it as necessary. So God forbid someone veers off the road a little bit, or lightning strikes twice in one spot, it can then be repaired and maintained.
Ms. Prowse, got it. Go ahead, you can run this piece.
Oh,
Yes.
I'm sorry. It's not a committee, so
All right,
go ahead.
so, I was just wondering, what's your timeframe to get it installed? You said it's ready. When do you anticipate it being installed?
It's ready. We would like to finish our fundraising efforts. It was supposed to be a 3-year project, so it started last year. We're in year 2, and we're finalizing the fundraising now. And then as soon as the site is ready.
If I can interject, the installation of the clock is not on really up to the Rotary right now. Where we have the site that we have is the Grossman site. And the location is between the Grossman site and the existing garage. This was going to be kind of the centerpiece to mark the location for the new tunnel, the pedestrian tunnel that we're going to reinstate underneath the rail that we're talking about. And this was to give that a sense of place. The path and the work is already shown on Bulwer's plans. Bulwer is the engineer for Old Town Market, which is what that is going to be on that site. But I do not know their specific schedule. The project we're working on with Metroplex, we're working on it with the mayor, but this is a little bit ahead of that. So I don't know how the two will line up. But we like the idea when we were talking about locations, we like the idea of this location because when the buildings are down and this is kind of an area with a path, this is a very large, prominent, beautiful clock, and it's going to give it a sense of place on the corridor, whereas if it wasn't there, you could just go right past it and kind of not notice where this path is that we're hoping is going to be a nice little signature for the city to have.
Other questions? Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you again for Rotary's great work in the
Yes,
city.
well, you did. Thank you, members, appreciate it very much, thank you.
Thank you.
Very much, everybody. Have a good evening. Thanks. All right, second on the agenda is our appointment of the city clerk, and in there you will see that our current city clerk, Chuck Lawrence, has put all his papers in, and paperwork is finalized, and he's going to be retiring on June 14th of this year. And I would like to offer a recommendation of Samantha Michael to fill the remaining days of Mr. Thorne's term, which will be June 15th 2019, ending on December 31st, 2019. Any discussion on this? Yes. Nobody wants to discuss?
We all know Sam, I think Sam does a fabulous job. We're lucky to have you in this position. You're very efficient and effective, and support you in this new role.
Anybody else?
I think that those ladies have said it well, that Sam has done a great job, and so I'm looking forward to continually working with her and, for her to be a part of the staff and training the people that come along, so you've done a great job, Sam.
And of course, Chuck Thornton and Chuck is here as well. Of course, we'll give you a nice bon voyage on the day.
Absolutely.
And thank you for your service, many years for the service, to our residents here. And I know Samantha, you'll do a great job as well. And we just happen to have our past deputy clerk here as well. Chad Butman is joining us today, so I'm sure you got thumbs up as well, right? Very, very good. So you got unanimous consent on this. I still need a motion though to move it. Ms. Karen Zalewski was on this, and I need a second. John, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Youth Advisory Board, I kind of scratched this late. We have such a long agenda today, but I did email folks out just a very draft form of what I was looking to present. It's just an application for our students, high school students, and actually any youth residing in the city of Schenectady. It was sent to the City of Schenectady School District and the high school guidance officers. We're waiting to hear their feedback as well. But it's a pretty easy form to do. You can do it right online. It's all interactive, so they'll be able to get everything right back to us. So I'll hold it for a couple of weeks, but just to let you know if we didn't forget about it. But the process is moving along, and the high school is very, they're all looking forward to working with us on the Youth Advisory Board. And I think it's been a piece that's been missing for a while, and again, thank you all for your support on that. As we continue. Question on that?
Yeah, just one question.
Yes.
I didn't see any place where you asked like the different employment information, but you didn't ask anything about the schools that attended, so.
Yeah, the very last page. It's flipped over. It's the very last page of the whole thing. Keep going. There's a back of it.
Oh.
Yes.
On that, okay.
Yes. And that's kind of, I wanted to move that first, but the reason we kind of did this way is because we are looking for adults too, community members. So that's kind of why we did it. I could flip it the other way if that makes a little bit more sense. Put the students in, it does kind of make sense actually.
Yeah.
Put the students first and then the adults after that. So we will certainly do that though. All right.
Yeah, my other question was, there's no indication on how the decision will be made, like, to make sure that we have a level of diversity in terms of neighborhoods and schools and all of that. There's nothing here that, how would that be determined?
Again, the council, we remember that as we wrote in the legislation, we were going to look at the applications ourselves and kind of working with the high school and their guidance office. I think that's really going to be the key, is having their partnership with us. Because again, they know their youth better than what we do. And of course, we're looking to meet the youth. But the Monty Farley's on it, Carolyn Wagley is on it. There's 5 different groups that meet on a regular basis there after school that are all involving our youth, and they're tremendously diversified. So that's kind of the core group we're gonna pull from to get the advisory board going.
Well, I'm speaking of all diversity, but I also want to make sure that we're diverse in terms of the neighborhood they come from. And additionally, like youth from Safe Incorporated, let's say for instance, who may not be in the school system, are going to be partnering with any
Yes.
agencies that serve.
Yep. And Sheila's going to get this too. Sheila Wood, the new executive director, and that's why we opened up to, as long as you're a city resident, that's what we're looking for. That's our key. Cities and schools are involved. Notre Dame Bishop Gibbons is involved. Homeschooled youth are involved as well. Don't forget that. We do have a fairly large group of youth in the city that are homeschooled, and of course charter schools. Those who reside in the city but attend Albany Tech or whatever, Green Tech, we're going to include them as well. So really it's getting the information out, to the public. Again, working with the school district right now, getting their initial okay on the process, as far as what we can and cannot ask the kids for, privacy notices. And then we'll bring it back in 2 weeks and have this really cleaned up, and then we'll kind of really dig into this and how we want to get it out there. All right? But I think we're moving forward with it, and like I said, we've got some good feedback out there already. So I think it's kind of exciting. The last piece here is Orlando School of Dance. I don't know if folks have heard, and I know Chad has heard, unfortunately, Orlando School Dance is moving from the city of Schenectady. Yeah, their last class is going to be in this June of 2019. They've been a staple here in the city of Schenectady for many, many years, and particularly Woodlawn, where I reside. But the reason we found out is because of the Woodlawn newsletter, and they wrote a beautiful letter to us saying that this would be their last summer there. So in recognition of that, we're going to do a ceremonial resolution, if we could, to thank Orlando. They're moving to Scotia Glenville area. And we're going to be losing a valuable member of the community, but again, just to thank them. All three of my girls went through there, and I know many, many youth that participated as well, men and women, young men and women have gone through there. So, if I can get a motion on that, just to move that, right? Karen and John, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Anything else to come before our committee? Motion adjourned. Karen and John, all in favor, say aye. Thank you. We're adjourned.
Call the order of public service and utilities. We have 2 items on the agenda. Mr. Wallman, first item is award bid and contract for paving.
Get a loud voice, or you want this?
A little bit of both.
There you go.
So, as per every year, we put out a paving bid, using both local, federal, and state funding. We received 4 bids this year from Empire, Newcastle, Callahan, and the Weezy Brothers. The low bid was Empire Paving. We've gone through the bid. We really have no issues with the bid. We've worked with Empire in the past, and we'd like to move forward with it. If you have any questions on it, it's pretty cut and dry compared to some of the other projects that we're working on, even though I know it's a major project and undertaking in the city.
Any questions?
I'll move it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next item is award bid and contract for City Hall electrical upgrade.
Nope, this is another bid that we put out. This project is to upgrade the electrical systems in City Hall, mainly the feeders that go from our main electrical cabinet up through our stairwell to the floors and all of our panels. In addition, by doing that, we are going to install battery backup to all of the necessary hallway lighting so that we have emergency lighting as per code. Right now, as you're probably aware, the building does not have that as it's an older building. So instead of kind of ruining the character of the building by putting the rabbit ears all over, and the rabbit ears also need to be tied into the power. So it's a little invasive, and it also doesn't look very nice. We're going to actually have a battery backup, and we're going to be running to the switches so that if the power were to go out, the hallway lights that are on will stay on. So we won't have those rabbit ears. So it's a battery backup system. It also is, if we decide to move towards a generator, we can plug into that and go from battery backup to generator. So I think it's a good upgrade for the city.
Any questions?
I'll move it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anything else to come? Thank you. Anything else to come before public service and utilities?
I'll move adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to open up city planning and development, and the first item on there is Kristen.
And a couple of them.
Thank you. So included in our consolidated plan and neighborhood revitalization strategy area, there is CDBG funds for demolitions of vacant city-owned properties. We are just asking to accept the bids that we received for the properties listed, and we're excited about the end uses of these properties as well. 410 and 412 Schenectady Street will be converted into a sculpture garden that's by the Hamilton Hill Art Center as part of the Thriving Neighborhoods Challenge, and 410 Summit will be a garden as part of New Choices Recovery Center. So we've been really focused on trying to find good uses for some of these in these redevelopment areas for these blighted properties, and we're excited to move forward with it. So we are just asking to accept the bids for the demolitions.
So I have a question. There's 2 separate demolitions here, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's one.
Okay, yep, so the first one is the ones I just went through.
No, the first one would be Cary Street and Strong Street.
Oh, you just had them, okay.
All right.
Yep,
Okay, so we're, the first ones on the agenda would be the Cary Street property, 955 Strong Street, and Back Street, correct?
yes.
Okay, that's number one. And does anyone have any questions on that issue?
So looking at both of these, and Mr. Well, if you can help us, these bids seem awful high. I mean, the prices of these demolitions now have gone skyrocketing. Is there a reason for that? I mean, now we're
The
over
reason is-
93,000 for.
Yeah, the reason is basically the asbestos and the work to remove
The
the fire
environmental,
material.
the
Yeah,
environmental within these properties needs to be appropriately disposed of, and that's what drives up the cost of having these demolitions done.
That's just incredible.
It is,
And it's $94,000 to knock out a house.
yeah, no,
But it needs to be done right.
Oh, I
and-
understand.
and, you know, this is, unfortunately, this is what it costs now.
Okay, that explains it. I'm very good.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and then the second one is the one that Kristen just spoke of, the two Schenectady streets of the Summit Avenue.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, the next item on the agenda, Mr. Wall, CETA MOU for bike sharing program.
So, as you are most likely aware, the CDTA unveiled several years ago a bike share program within the city, actually within the capital region. Bikes are in Albany, Schenectady, Troy, Saratoga. I believe they just got rolled out in Cohoes as well. Through the program, bikes are placed in locations throughout the cities and are available through an app through the program. The program is heavily subsidized by both federal grants and sponsorships, such as the primary sponsor, which is CDPHP. But as it states in the information, there is still quite a bit of expense that goes into this. And as the program continues to evolve, they reached out to all major municipalities about having a annual share, so to speak, to put into the program as a public amenity. So there are some benefits to the city, to have it. City employees will be allowed to use the bikes free of cost. That's one of the things that they talked about. I'm trying to work out some of the other details they have out. But this is something that they reached out to both Saratoga, Troy, and Albany for. We did have a one-time cost 2 years ago for the program's unveiling, which I believe was $50,000. So this is a continuation of that. So this is a 3-year deal, $25,000 for 3 years. We have the money. I may, you may move it up in the budget this year. You may see some, increase in one of my lines because of it, just to make sure that we account for it. So I think it's a good program. We have a lot of riders in the city, and one of the things that we had, and it's not heavy-handed, and we put in here, that we did adopt the bike plan, and we are using it at a lot of marketing to try to connect, how we connect with the harbor downtown, how we kind of connect with some of the neighborhoods to have these bikes, and we are developing a lot of bike plans. All of our federal aid projects as we're going forward are bike-centric. As you were, Mr. Cody, we were at the meeting, the Kings Road Bridge, we just widened it with over $1 million additional funding for bikes. Both of our TIP projects that were approved for the future, one of them is for a cycle track on Franklin Street, right behind me, to connect Vale Park to J Street downtown. We also have money for Craig and Main Street, which is, another part of our complete street study. So, Schenectady really is leading the capital region as we go with these kinds of multimodal programs, and this is just to kind of keep up with it. Is there any question?
Have the other municipalities all formally adopted and agreed to?
I'm not 100% if they've done that. I can find out.
Yeah, could you find out?
Yeah, I can find out by tomorrow. I know this is going on Monday. I can find out.
And so my question is, are they going to add any more bike in any other new locations within this?
I don't believe with this one. I think they doubled it last year.
I was going to say, I saw a lot more.
Yeah,
come
there's a
on.
lot more now, and I think that's for this level. I think they want to evaluate. They're also looking at, what the next round of things could be in the future. Trying to set up. There's been some push for, those electronic assisted bikes. Other things to try to keep moving the program forward. But no, we definitely. I believe it says that we doubled the amount of bikes.
I just
Some
didn't
of the
know if
racks in
this
the
was
city.
going to increase it anymore, because there's quite a few, I mean, there's a lot around the city, so, okay. All right, Ms. Porterfield?
So, it doesn't really talk about the ridership. Do you know that it has that stayed steady, has it increased?
It's, I'm sorry, it's not in here. It has increased. I don't have the 2,000 rides, 15 months. No, I don't have that in here. But no, what I've heard, it has increased. And, Schenectady is, proportionally with population, we're doing well. We're not as big as Albany. But we also are geographically a little bit more beneficial because Albany has a giant hill, similar to Troy. We have a hill, but it's nothing compared to what they have there. So riding between the areas is so bad. But I can get an information about what other municipalities have done, and I'll get some ridership information as well.
Any other questions?
I'll move it.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. Mr. Wallace, I think you're still up.
Yep, I'm just grabbing something. I don't know if you have, this was a late addition. Oh, say you do have it.
They do have it.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I made some copies.
I don't have it in mine because I have it on mine.
Okay. So most of you are familiar, as this has been before you prior. This is the Gateway Park. Get the name right. Sorry. Oh, I don't have the official name. What is
Plaza.
Gateway Plaza Schenectady Pride Park Installation. I wanted to make sure I got the entire name correct. We thought that this was a project through Thriving Neighborhoods, correct? And one of the things that I thought we were talking about was the easiest way to both bring this to council and have kind of the city's basis checked and to go through with this with a revocable permit. It's a little unique, but in the same way, it's a lot simpler and cleaner this way. With a revocable permit, we're doing it, we bring it to you. We require insurance, which they submitted. They have their renderings in here, so, in conversations, we think that this is the easiest way to move forward with this installation, given that it is in the city's right of way, and that it will be revoked at some point. It's not a permanent installation.
Questions?
I'm happy to move it.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Christine Chen?
So, the next item on the agenda is Energize New York. Oh,
Yes, I think it's best Carl can handle this one.
Okay.
Remember a couple of years ago, we passed a couple of local laws related to PACE financing and Energize New York. And it was meant to allow businesses that came in here to do some solar installations and pay for it in a specific way where the cost is added to the property tax bill. And then rather do this program the state had, and if somebody didn't pay, then the city was on the hook for it, so the city would eventually get reimbursed if we had foreclosed on the property after like 3 years. It was a great program. It was a little elaborate, and the state now sent us a new local law that is an update to the program. It's actually a bit more favorable towards the municipalities, and I think a bit easier to use, where instead of the city being on the hook to fund the costs if somebody using the program doesn't pay for a couple of years before we get reimbursed. Now, the city's not middleman anymore, but we do still have to approve the local law. And they sent us the text of it. I didn't see it attached to the legislative request, so I'm sorry about that. I can send that out to everybody tomorrow morning. I reviewed it, I know the mayor's office has reviewed it. And, if you were in favor of the old program, this one is actually a better deal for the city.
Questions?
I'll move it pending we receive it.
Yeah. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is Miracle on Credit Street. And the proposed
Yes, and I'm actually going to turn it over to Ms. Porterfield, and we have some guests here to do a presentation for us as well.
So I'm going to ask Mr. Trayvon Jackson to come up, and he has two of his colleagues with him, and tell you who
And
they are.
Ms. Jackson, if you don't mind.
I don't think I have to give any background on Miracle on Craig Street,
Thanks.
what we've been doing with them. So at this point, he's going to give us an update on to where they are with the project. And you've been provided with some financials in your package, and hopefully all of you at this point have seen the feasibility study that was done a while ago. So I'll turn over to Mr. Jackson.
Thank you. So thank you for the opportunity to talk to the council today. Really just wanted to give an overview, a brief overview, and field any questions that the group may have. To begin with, my name is Trayvon Jackson, the president of the Blue Light Development Group. We're a 501c3 nonprofit development firm that's contracted by Miracle on Craig Street to advise the project and ensure it's feasible. We work in concert with the Albany Law School Community Development Institute with two of my colleagues in the back, Julie Benson and David Kraft. And with the help of that team, as of late, we've been able to secure some additional grant funds that are eligible as a match for the block grant fund. So an additional $25,000 from the Gundry Foundation. We've also been able to adjust our structure so that we don't have to borrow a significant portion of money to complete the project. I think there are some notable highlights. One, with the contingency that we have in the budget, we're at about 14%. Which is overfunded, for a typical project. We also have cash on hand with the Gundry grant for about $40,000, and that's more than 10% of the total project overall. Again, something that's fairly uncommon, particularly with a grant funded capital project. So I think there are the positive updates, those being the highlights, but I imagine there are some more specific questions, so I'd like to prioritize those.
Ms. Brazel.
I'm wondering where the grant decision lies for the 4 grants that had pending decisions. So the Assembly Grant, the Senate Grant, the Carlilian Foundation, and the Benai Bread Foundation?
Yes. So as of, so in terms of the Senate and Assembly grants, that all has to be resolved by a budgetary issue. So we spoke to their office late last week, Senator Barber specifically, and that's really, to be frank, it's politics. It's kind of a crapshoot with the land, which is why we don't depend on that money as heavily in this structure.
And the others, the Carlilian and the Benai Bread?
These we still have not heard back from. The dates included in there, when we expected to hear back from them, are the dates that we were provided during the process. So some of them are overdue, frankly, but William and came in, as you can see, a month ago now, and they were scheduled there in April. So there's really only about one that's on time as of now, and then we have one other response in March.
Okay, so they aren't through their grant cycle yet. They haven't awarded their grants yet.
I can't speak for other organizations that may have had separate conversations that I wasn't party to, but they have not communicated with us.
Okay.
Yeah, so, I have a couple questions.
Okay.
What is the total project cost? What do you anticipate in order for, the facility to be up and running? It looks like you're at 300, and I'm a little confused on this, because you're 45 down, 485 here, you have 340 here. I'm assuming this is pending that, and these all add up to this, and this all adds up to that. So I'm assuming this is not been committed yet?
No, so
The
actually,
Bank Right Foundation, Thriving Neighborhoods.
no, so the commitment status is included in the status column, and this column actually doesn't describe the total cost of the project. This page is just the outstanding schedule of grant department applied for. The sources and uses on the front will give the total project cost of $376,443. And for building repairs specifically, that's $318,867.
318 to get the building up to code, is what you're telling me?
Yeah.
Okay, is that going to make it functional, or is that just going to bring it to code? Is that going to be turnkey, somebody that can come in and you do programming?
Yeah, that's a functional number from feasibility. So they prepared 2 estimates. There's a $1.5 million estimate, which is a full all-in rehab, fix everything, upgrade everything number. And then they included a number to return it to open use and operation. And that was maintaining what you can, repairing and replacing the major systems, but not being extravagant and spending for cosmetics. That's the 318 number from the feasibility.
Okay, so then you're looking at a loan amount of $70,000, is that what I'm looking at here?
Yes.
And do you have a commitment from anyone on that yet?
No, so we're in conversations with KeyBank for that number. Part of the difficulty is that we can't secure a debt for, property we're not owners
No,
of.
I
Yeah, so
understand
that as far as that conversation has gone, is as far as the bank will let that conversation happen in that circumstance. But that borrowing number is really only to handle the reimbursement issue of the grants. So part of the difficulty is that for any capital project, you're not going to be 100% funded by grants. It's pretty rare. So in this case, being pretty much 100% funded by grants, our main issue is timing and delays. So we actually moved from a quarterly reimbursement schedule to a monthly reimbursement schedule because going quarterly would require us to carry almost the entire project burden in debt format, really just because we have grants as opposed to debt financing in general. And that would balloon interest costs to about $15,000 over the course of the project, which we think would be much more useful to actually repair the building. So we minimize the debt number as much as we could while respecting that we do have to reimburse a little money over.
So I apologize because I can't even begin to read this number.
Yeah, I hope the digital would have been.
I cannot read any of that. So do you have a pro forma as far as going forward? I mean, the facility would be opened up and what are the revenue and expenses projections? Do you have that?
Yeah, so there's a 5-year pro forma included in here, and where the line by line is difficult to read, there's we included what's about a 4-page narrative discussion. I talked to some of the other council members before, and I know when you get that deep with the numbers, it's always hard to read unless you're printing on legal paper. So there's a narrative in here that specifically references those numbers as well, and I'm sure that we can distribute a digital copy that would be easier for everyone to see as a follow-up. But, a brief summary of that, we hold the fundraising numbers constant over a 5-year period. We assume expenses will inflate 3% year over year to be conservative. And what we show is a declining net income because we're holding revenues constant and increasing expenses over the period of time, but never losing money. In year 5, actually, we break in at about $500, which was a good year for most nonprofits, so we'll take that.
So do you have this in better form? I just want to, I can't begin to read
We can
this.
circulate.
If
It's
you,
in our packet too online.
I couldn't,
Yeah, in the agenda section, you can.
I can just stand it out. I didn't get it.
And I apologize to the council, once you get into it multiple periods that wide, on letter paper,
No, I
really never.
I
So I apologize for any confusion around that.
I don't need glasses.
I do too.
It's called Carl Feltino font, that's what it is. Legal font.
Looking at your cash on hand and looking at the bank statement,
Yes.
it's 21K versus 46K.
Yes.
What is the difference?
The additional cash is the Gundry Foundation grant that was just committed, but has not been dispersed yet. But that will be a cash in hand grant that does not require a match. So we include it as the cash number at the launch of the project. But as of today,
And that is 25K?
yes. So that's how we end up at that 43 odd number.
Okay.
Yeah. But the cash number there, the bank statement, the organization was working with ICI and Nikon as a way to manage their initial formation and administrative process. So that statement is from when they transferred their accounts from under the supervision of Nikon to their own individual account. So it is an organizational strengthening measure.
Other questions? Mr. Palmer?
Yeah, I see in here you have rental spaces, a number of those.
Yeah.
That will likely impact your 501c3 and taxes, but I didn't see that incorporated in your expense piece.
So there won't be property taxes because the organization will be 100% owner of the charitable purpose. Of course, it's subject to city and assessment approval, but I believe everyone is very familiar with the purpose of Miracle Tragedy and the charitable motivations in that community. So if there's any haggling around the language or use, those rental spaces are going to be for other organizations, community purpose, and certainly within the realm of nonprofit purpose to earn money. So that's where our thinking is.
Typically, am I wrong in this, Mr. Paltico, when you rent out a space, I don't care if you're a church, well, take a church for example, you have a building, you rent an apartment, you should be paying taxes on that, is that not?
On that portion.
On that portion.
It depends on, if you're renting it just for the purpose of raising funds, that's unrelated to the purpose of your not-for-profit, then yes, you're right. that would make the parcel taxable as opposed to not taxable. If it's renting it to another organization who maybe is tax exempt or who is providing a service that is related to your not-for-profit, it's possible that would.
No, I'm just looking, the only reason, it's a juice bar. It is hard to read. Event space, that, to me, seems you would have to pay taxes on that portion.
If I could characterize a little further, it's not those activities were performed by a market rate enterprise, absolutely, I certainly agree. But those activities are supporting the financial stability of the nonprofit that's operating the community center. And for what it's worth, a theater has a gift shop, we don't tax those. This is really for the purpose of keeping the budget strong. It's not feasible for an organization with that large footprint not to monetize the spaces that are existing to be monetized. And those spaces were always offices, as far as I know they're used. So ultimately, again, though, that's not up to us, that's up to assessment. So where do you think that the mission does not align correctly? We're going to get further conversation about that. But Miracle on Church Street has and always been a mission-driven organization.
What about the property?
So I guess actually the next piece is, do we need to extend, we had given them a deadline of, what was it, May 1st or April 1st to come up with the additional funding? Do we need, is that something we need to do to extend that? My proposal this evening was to extend that to September 30th of this year, because that's technically when the CDBG grant that they're currently under expires. Am I correct? Runs through
That's when
September.
the contract would
The contract will expire.
We would be happy to extend it.
Is that something the council has to move, or is it something that your office, or?
Something that would have to come from the council. I know, Mr. Colton here is prepared to talk about this a little bit.
Okay.
We were considering when to bring this up to the council if it wasn't raised tonight, so.
Since we have.
Yeah, it'd be a good time to move forward with it if you're amenable.
Good evening, everyone. We did have some discussions with the attorneys representing Miracle on Credit Street about extending the current option agreement. The current option agreement is no longer current. It was a 6-month agreement beginning on October 2nd, 2018. So obviously it's expired. So we would be seeking to extend the option agreement an additional, I think the number we were looking at was 6 months.
Or September 30th.
Right, so I think the date that we had was September 10th, 2019. Was the technical date that we were looking at. Obviously, it's up to the council in terms of how long it would want to extend the option.
I think my recommendation was, when I was speaking about it with the attorneys in the office, is just be a little conservative, and if you think September is the date, maybe throw a little bit in there. Those lawyers sometimes will finagle with the language a little longer than I think people like.
So what do you recommend?
I thought September 30th, that's when the contract ended, right?
Oh, yeah, that's fine, yep.
That makes
Certainly
perfect
makes
sense,
sense,
doesn't
yep.
it?
Yes.
Right, nice and clean, you got a solid dates.
That work?
I'm sorry, which committee is this? Yours? I'm sorry, again. I was at the whole thing here, I apologize.
So we're looking to extend the date for them to secure the rest of the grant financing and the lending until the end of September.
Correct. And it would be, September 30th would be the date in which they would have to close on the property.
Okay.
So the option would be not just to secure whatever they have to secure, but to actually close on the property.
Well, why don't we just make the option, they'll have a right to exercise an option by September 30th, and we can go from there, just to think it's a little easier that way.
And there's flexibility within the contract, so it's, they have some time, and once they have everything secure, and they say, yes, we're going to move forward to close on the property.
Right. Any other questions?
I have one quick question. Andrew, if we do this, and I know we've done it plenty of times in the past, the concern is if someone comes in the future and we deny it, are we leaving ourselves up for a lawsuit in the future?
In terms of if we
Let's say
grant somebody else.
we grant this one, which I don't know there. But next year somebody else comes along, we say no. Are we leaving ourselves open?
No, the council, and it's actually been really litigated back in the mid-2000s, specifically with Schenectady, about the council's authority to sell property and use of property. And you really have unfettered power to do that for almost any reason, as long as you're not violating, federal civil rights law. So as long as it's not related to people or religion or anything like that, and you have something you can point to saying that that's the actual reason, you're not going to have any problem with that.
Thank you. Anything else?
So just to clarify, we're agreeing to extend it to September 30th of 2019, correct?
I will say I have concerns about the revenue piece, but I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye.
Thank you all. I'm happy to be available after this for more follow-up questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Great.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the ceremony resolution for month of the Safety and Awareness Month. Mr. Lee.
May is more.
All in favor?
Aye.
You're not the house angels.
Okay. All right, I believe the rest of the items on here need to be done in the executive section.
We have some additional property sales we were hoping to add on that are for executive session, but you're gonna recess, so it's gonna pass out copies of them.
Right.
Well,
Can we, all right, you want to do that now, say before I recess? Is that what you're looking for?
yeah, because then they're at least announced that they're on the agenda when we go into executive
All right,
session.
do you want to announce them?
Yes, it's 6 properties that we're looking to transfer to the land bank. They are mostly properties where the land bank has done demolition already, and we've had an agreement with them, and this is just a formality of getting approval for the transfer. But it's, there's some copies with explanations. 708 Union Street, 25 Columbia Street, 11 Pennsecond Avenue, 1101 Barrett Street, 760 Eastern Avenue, and 110 Prospect Street are the ones that I'd like to discuss in executive session.
All right, so I would,
Second.
all in favor?
Call order finance, the first item on the agenda, we're going to hold for 2 weeks waiting for the financial analysis. The second item is to authorize acceptance of tip money in this law.
Final appearances here.
This is another standard annual thing that we do. You have it in front of you, the letter. So every year after the state budget, the state sends us a letter summarizing the CHIPS money that we have available for the rollover and the allocations going into the new year. The allocation is similar, I would say, in similar years. However, we are no longer doing this year the emergency winter recovery money, which is EWR. You'll see that that's a zero, but we do have an allocation through Pave New York. That's EWR. So, yeah.
Are there any questions?
I'll move it.
I'm sorry, question.
Sure.
The 1920 appointment, the 1,439 is just the foundation 1920 appointment, right?
Mhm.
What are we doing with our cumulative roll balance, and do we get more paving out of that?
Yeah, we are. We're going to be doing more this year. We're going to be using it up. Last year we ended up just the scheduling. We ended up not being able to add some on at the end. Usually, what we do is we're order reserve, and then we monitor the roads, and we work with Mike Cerrone in the Streets Department to pave roads at the end. However, a combination of weather and schedule with our contracts. When we were done, we got to the end and we didn't have that ability. So we left some money on the table, which is what that money is. This year, we're not looking to do that. We've also tightened up our estimates quite a bit, whereas we used to use quite a large contingency rate, and now we've moved that down because our estimates, given that such a large quantity, and we do it so much, we have a pretty good idea of what it is. We don't need to put such a large contingencies, and that's reduced our estimates hundreds of thousands of dollars going forward.
No.
So,
Right, because our rollover is
no, we usually,
even larger than, in
yeah,
the
we usually
national
want to
grid
roll
work
over
right now.
like $250,000 to $500,000,
Yeah.
but we're way over that.
Way over that.
Yeah, and National Grid, we continue to work with them, but I know that people always.
It is hot out there. It is really, it's bad.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but they're, like, what they fill in is like not filled in, like the sunken.
Yeah, the reason I talk about people, if we can get on more, and I just talked with them today again, is that they temporarily fix all the trenches. So what you see is like a temporarily patch, specifically on Eastern, where I just drove that.
Yeah.
It's,
Or Central Parkway.
so it's low, and then they monitor, and then come in with the actual restoration. People doing the restoration, the first, those are the gas people. And then they come in with a restoration company when the line is active and the services are connected, and then they come in and they saw cut concrete and do it the right way. They don't do it the right way the first time because if they detect a leak, they want to dig it out quick. But we are working with them, we can stay on it.
I just, it's challenging because you drive around Gilderland Avenue is in very difficult shape. Eastern Parkway is a mess. I mean, some of these streets they've just done and they don't even patch
Well,
up.
Gilderland, I believe Gilderland is, patch is the good spot. Eastern is, the patch is really exacerbated the issue, especially because that road was on a tipping point, and this really tipped it the other way. But Gilderland is this year, we're paving that, probably gonna be out there.
What's the timeline with that?
Yeah, they're gonna be out there end of
Early
June.
2019.
End of June, they're gonna be out there, yeah. We're working on Broadway right now. We wanted to get Broadway dialed in, done before Hamilton, before some of the things, before we have a lot of people downtown. Get it done, they're working down there. We wanted to focus, get it in and get the heck out of there. And then they're moving all the way up to Gilderland to finish that, which is an even longer stretch.
And what about the poor people in the stockade? What are we looking at for a timeline on that? I mean, that's, you have porta johns in the streets and piles of dirt and heavy equipment and, you know, in a neighborhood that already has issues with parking as it is. Do we have any kind of timeline on when that's gonna get cleaned up?
Well, Union and Washington in that area, they're pretty much done with it. But Front Street is going to be for several months. Front Street, because they're going all the way from Washington, all the way down to Mohawk.
What about South Church?
South Church, they're gonna be going all the streets to the river. I don't know about South Church at
Well,
this
there's a
point.
big pile in front, 5-7,
South Church.
South Church. I don't know. I know, I'm just saying that, you know, they
Yeah, that's one
look
of the
like
other
they've left
concerns.
it and there's still a big pile. I don't know if they cleaned it up today, but it was there the other day.
That's something that we're gonna have to work with Paul, the contractor that does that as well. There's going to be a lot of truck traffic going down, presumably Washington Avenue, and then circling back up to make sure that those roads are, maybe we patch them or overlay them before we do anything, because they're going to get a lot of traffic, a lot of heavy trucks.
Mr. Regan?
I really believe at some point, you mentioned it before, talks amongst themselves about it, but I think at some point, the city should require when X amount of the street is compromised with many cutouts, it should be required to be paved curb to curb, because those cutouts, I don't care how they're done finished wise, they're gonna fail. That's what you're gonna have. You're gonna have cutouts just like you're gonna have a sweater with a bunch of patches on it.
So
Eventually, they're gonna fail.
We did change the ordinance several years ago, and if a street is within 5 years, Eastern would not fall into that category. Brandywine does. They are gonna be milling Brandywine from the edge of theirs to the curb line. And we're trying to keep them off of certain streets. But like Eastern is where we kind of fall into the That road was paved about probably 10 years ago when they did the curve, and they did actually that road over. So they come back and they do it. They do it to code. I mean, Town does a good job. They soft cut, they put concrete. It's better than what you're seeing, AGI. I think that's the crew that's working right now.
But I mean, it still is, when you're gonna have that many cuts eventually, you know, I don't care where the street cut is, they're gonna fail. Look at, how about Cherry Street? And I know that got under the radar, Cherry Street, but that was brand new 2 years ago, and it's got a bunch of cutouts in it. Are they gonna be required to repave that street?
I'll look at Cherry Street.
With the repaving of Brandywine, is it part of our code that they have to raise irons? And are we gonna ensure that that happens?
On Brandywine?
Yeah, like when they're raising, when they're gonna pave curb to curb like that, on, you know, a road that was fairly new, is it part of our code that they have to raise the irons and
I would say
make
part of the
sure
code
that
is part of the
gets done?
procedure, yeah.
Well, right, but we got, like, Broadway, when they repaved it, they didn't raise the irons. And I know
Broadway
it's
down.
gonna get done again,
Yeah, I
like
mean,
by Proctor's.
right,
you know,
but
just-
that was a specific,
I know,
we took our lumps for a short period because
Right.
we wanted it smooth.
right. So I just wanted,
Yeah,
because
no,
that really
we
is
do.
another bad situation when they don't properly raise the irons, you
It
know?
is, yeah, we had the issue, we have a little bit of it on Knott Street right now. Eastern down by, where the land bank's doing all their work by, Santa Mary's, that area, we have it.
All right, we have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
And motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Chip's money's in.
All right, I'm gonna call to order, government operations, and our first item on the agenda is the plastic bag newspaper drop.
Now, there they are. How many have seen these things, right? In your neighborhoods? They're all over the city, right?
No, like that, no.
It's unbelievable. They're just all over the city. And I've been in constant contact with the Gazette on many occasions. The mayor's office has connected me with folks, and the Times Union, believe it or not, actually is now delivering the pieces door to door. They're actually having individuals walking and putting them on your porch or, you know, in the porch door area, as opposed to just throwing these all over the driveways. And I sent pictures out just the other day, Eastern Avenue that we're talking about down by St. Mary's. They were all the way down the road. The Woodlawn area continues to get hit. And I'm just looking here, they've got a nice ad in there. It says, attention businesses, now you can reach nearly 100% of the households in Niskayuna area every Friday, including zip codes in 12309, 12308, and 12304. And of course, those zip codes also encompass the city of Schenectady. Randolph Road, got hit there as well, didn't you, John? I guess I got calls from Randolph, maybe it's the other end. But they're really, they are all over the place, and I don't know what we can do about this.
You mean on the right-of-way sidewalks?
They throw them onto the sidewalk or right into the driveway itself.
Maybe we should enforce the litter law then.
Well, and that's what somebody's saying, you know, I put it on Facebook and I had over 150 hits and shares with comments from people throughout, you know, not only Schenectady, but Niskayuna, now Clifton Park is getting hit with it. Denise Murphy-McGraw brought it up at their recent town board meeting at the town of Niskayuna, where their residents are starting to get very irritated as well. And again, I go to Mr. Faldico or whatever, I mean, do we contact? The reason from what I understand, is that the U.S. Post Office has tripled their rate to mail these to each household, like we used to get them in the past. They were actually U.S. mailed and given to us that perspective. But now, they're just all over the place, and it's really disgraceful. I just want to know, what can we do, if anything, to enforce the litter law, if you would?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Mr. Collery.
I actually reached out to John DeAugustine of the Gazette. He said that basically was not very happy to hear this, and he will jump on it and try to take care of the situation. Also was in contact with Brian Zarelli of the Gazette, and I guess Mr. DeAugustine and him will be working together, but he also, Brian Zarelli, in the meantime, the Gazette said that should anybody choose to not want these, whether it's a block, long streets, whoever individual residences, they will cease delivery. And so all you need to do is call the Gazette, they will stop delivery, and they are aware of the situation with them being on the sidewalks and are trying to address that issue and getting them as close to the door as possible. But Mr. DeAugustine did say that he's on top of this and will try to address that.
I think one of the problems, though, is the fact that it's not about the homeowner that gets the delivery and picks it up, right? It's about the homes that leave them sitting on the sidewalk and they get rained on and they don't pick them up because, for whatever case may be, right, they didn't ask for it. So that is part of the difficulty of this circumstance. But Mr. Coder, you have.
Yeah, and I spoke with John personally 3 different occasions. The mayor was kind enough to connect me directly with him and the Times Union editor as well. And Times Union took care of it immediately. The very next week, all deliveries have stopped. They're actually walking door to door, as I said. And unfortunately, this just has persisted and even gotten worse. You are correct. You can call the Gazette to opt out. But are you going to tell me I'm going to have 22,000 residents call the Gazette and opt out of this thing? Absolutely crazy.
Oops, sorry.
Yeah, but it's absolutely crazy. There's also a website. There's a link that they have as well that you can go online. And I put down Ed Kosher, 9 Nassau Avenue. I said the entire city of Schenectady stopped delivering. Let's see if that works.
Yeah, according to Mr. Zarelli, an entire block, one person just needs to, and the block will stop delivering. So we should see if they follow through.
So, question, Mr. Felton, is there anything we can do? Is the U.S. Post Office involved? Is this littering? What do we do if this, and again, we'll give them time to work on this. But as Ms. Peraza indicated, we have many vacant houses here. We have folks that go on vacation. These things just sit out there, and they sit out there, and when the wind blows, they are all over our streets. And again, some of you must not be in the areas that are getting these doggone things, but I picked them up, and I had a bag of 70 just on my little street alone in Schenectady. And that's when I started the Facebook post. And again, I've got well over 100 people that have, information. But is there anything we can do, or just wait for the Gazette to say, yeah, we'll take care of it?
I can look into it. I can tell you it's a real fine line because the freedom of the press to get the word out is real strong, and courts are very skeptical of things that are done to kind of infringe on that. So I don't have an answer for you off the top of my head, but I can look into it. But I know everyone here on the council really supports the press. So I would like just a little bit of time to give everybody into it before throwing something out there.
All right, and again, I appreciate anything you look into that for us. And again, we're going to be talking about straw discussion, the next one up. But we're talking about recyclables and paper. And this is causing more pollution here in our city than whatever straw we're going to be talking about in the next discussion. And I really want to see something done to alleviate the problems in our city. Because we're doing our best of doing cleanups and yard cleanups and everything else. But I just don't think that this is helping our cause in the city. So thank you very much.
Okay, we will put it on for 2 weeks, please, and we'll bring it back. Mr. Salatico can have some information for us by that time, as it relates to even our litter laws or how we might work together to alleviate the circumstance. So the next item up is a call for a public hearing for the plastic straw ban. But before we get into that conversation, I actually have a question, because to me, it seems like this would be a statewide thing, or, something with covering a larger area. Can we legally, as a municipality, put something like this in place?
I reviewed the draft local law, and off the top of my head, I can't say for sure either way. I brought some information and spoke with council members, police officers, a little bit about local laws and what the municipality can do without needing to take authorization. And I asked if that had been looked into at all, and I don't know if there's more information out there. I did a little research on it today, and I don't have an answer for you right now.
And obviously, there's no reason not to call it a public hearing, but I just think we need to make sure we look as deeply into that as possible, make sure we're doing something that we can legally do. So with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Ms. Peraza. So I'm not sure if everyone has ever seen the internet with the issues with straws. It's become quite evident that straws do not recycle, they stay around forever. They are a hazard. They eventually all end up in the ocean, and I know we're in Schenectady, but everything on the water goes downhill and it ends up in the ocean at some point in time. Straws are not, they're so light they don't go through the recycling. They're not biodegradable, and they end up injuring the wildlife. Not only that, they also, I did the Woodlawn Park cleanup, and I should have counted how many straws they ended up picking up along the fence line. I'm sure you all saw them on the streets when we were all out doing our community service in our parks back on, I think, the 27th or 24th. I think it's important that we think of our environment going forward. I think we need to make sure that we're doing anything and everything we can to instill, being conservative with our resources, and I think this is a step in the right direction. I think that we need to, seriously look at this, hear from the people. I know that I've had great feedback from lots of individuals that have come out in support of this. I know that sometimes when you go to different restaurants, they automatically give you the straw. It's an expense to the business owners that, they could not necessarily have to even offer straws anymore. When you go to a restaurant, there's no reason that you have to have a straw. So I think that a lot of the restaurant owners are open to this, and I think we need to start being responsible with our environment going forward. And I don't know if Mr. Comey, we both were on the bandwagon with this, and we both feel very strongly about ensuring that, the environment is taken care of. So if you have anything.
Yeah, like you did the street cleanup or park cleanup. Just in Bellevue on our little Veterans Park, by the time I got there, they had picked up over 40, nearly 50 straws, and they made a point to point that out to me, which I found amusing. But regardless, this has a number of issues. Littering, of course, we just talked about the newspapers. This has major implications. You can go up and down State Street and you see straws quite a bit. The costs of recycling are going up. China is not taking our recycling. It's now more expensive for us to recycle per ton, $60 or so per ton versus $40 for our general garbage. And so if we can just stop the consumption of this in the first place, it will be quite beneficial for the environment. It's an opportunity for us in the city to take leadership and really do something proactive for the environment. We all have seen the changes of climate change, the incidences of hurricanes coming through impacting the stockade. So, you can go around the city and you see these plastic straws. And if we can alleviate some of that issue, help our environment at the same time, again, I would encourage us to at least have a public hearing. I would encourage us to move forward on this. This is an opportunity for us to lead on something and not scamper away from our duty of taking care of our environment.
Questions, comments, Ms. Porterfield?
Yeah, so in terms of, I understand, the importance of this. My only thought and concern, well, one is that for people who have a need to have straw, people who, young children, elderly, they can't, so are we saying to restaurants?
No, there was legislation inside there.
I'm sorry. So are we saying to restaurants that you have to provide other straws, you have to have some type of straw? We're saying you can't have plastic, or we saying they must have some type? Are we saying that to them?
I think it's totally up to the restaurateur if they choose to have straws going forward, or if they want to provide, cardboard or paper straws or bamboo straws or, whatever other, manufactured straws there are. In the legislation, there is special needs individuals are exempt from that. So in a nursing home or in big along those lines, that they would definitely be able to still utilize the plastic straws. I think it's important that we don't have straws littering our streets. They're not recyclable, they don't ever break down.
No, I understand, I get all of that, and I understand the part about nursing homes, but there's people who go out to eat in regular restaurants who have a need to drink with a straw, whether it's because they have some kind of problem where they can't drink directly from the glass. So that's my question, if would we be working with restaurants in order to make sure that that's right?
It's right here in the legislation, on page 2.
So, yes, I mean, it would be, we're not trying to impede any customer or client that's, visiting a restaurant. So are there exceptions to the rules? Absolutely.
So in this, what you're saying here, they can provide a plastic straw to someone who.
I'm saying they can provide a straw. Usually, I don't know, when I would take my children out, and if they needed to have, a special cup, I had the sippy cup with me. It was, I provided it myself when I would go to a restaurant. So, as far as, special needs individuals, I'm assuming that a lot of times they would take care of it themselves. Yes, Mr. Fuzzy.
Let it be noted, Mr. Caltico has a straw. It's called plastic.
So,
Starbucks, is it Starbucks?
just to be clear, the legislation says may, but not must. Okay, because that was my question.
So, an additional question that I have is, how are we gonna enforce this? Who is gonna be responsible for enforcing this?
So, quite honestly, I think that the restaurateurs are going to, welcome this if they don't have to purchase a straw. Or, also the other thing is there's enough people that are so concerned about our environment. I think there will be clients that come to a restaurant, and if they have straws, I think it will be enforced by the clientele that are in favor of this.
But there are fines attached.
There are fines attached.
Who
So,
cites the business, who, what department is gonna, send out a citation saying, okay, you're being fined because you're not adhering to this law?
so I
It's easy enough for code enforcement to do. I mean, like Ms. Zaluski has said, people will be going to these restaurants. It's gotten a lot of coverage. People who know about this, they go into a place and there's plastic straws, they're going to be aware. And I'm sure there'll be comments and calls into City Hall as to what places are having this. But quite frankly, I would say the majority of our establishments will abide by the legislation.
Other questions, comments? Mr. Ricky?
Yeah, as I said before, I'm not opposed to this, but I'd like to see it carried out in a more comprehensive way as far as, I know you said you saw a lot of straws and litter pickup. That's a very small part of the problem though. Usually with the straw, there's a top on it, as Mr. Falatico has, and the cup. That's what you see in the street. So what percentage of the litter is the straw? Pretty small percentage, what I see. The main problem is, how do you educate people not to litter? That's the thing. Can you do it by legislating we can't have straws anymore? Maybe we'll take the cup away, just pour the drinks down their throat. I'm not sure. But, again, that's the smallest part of that object right there is the straw. I'm saying I'm not opposed to this, but we have to start enforcing our litter law in the city of Schenectady. That's one thing. Same with the papers that Mr. Kosher has there. Enforce the litter laws. Litter. I know freedom of the press, but that's not freedom of the press when they throw it on somebody's sidewalk. And those are ads, I believe. They're not.
They are.
They're not.
That's the ordinance unisection too, on top of that, in the city of Schenectady.
Yeah. But anyhow, again, I'm not opposed to this. I'd rather see it done statewide or at least countywide, that everybody's on board. What if somebody buys a straw in Glenville and they bring it over here and they throw it in the street? They're going to have the same straw. It's not going to have any kind of. I'm still going.
Don't stop.
But what I'm saying is, my point is, passing this is all fine and dandy. What should we regulate next not to have? We could go with plastic cups, and they could be cardboard cups. We could go with that. Let's go all the way through if we're going to do it. But I think the real thing is enforcement. The only way people understand that they shouldn't do this is when it costs them money out of their pocket. That's why we have code enforcement, that's why you have everything else, speeding laws and all that stuff. It's because it costs somebody money. When it costs them money, they understand, wait a minute, I won't throw this cigarette butt out the window anymore. How many cigarette butts do you see on the street? Go down to 890 by Broadway, take a look there. It's the biggest mess you ever seen, the cigarette butts. People throw them out, they clean their ashtrays out and drop them in the street. So it's a big thing. I'm just rambling on and on because litter is a terrible thing, but the straw is a very small percentage of it. I'd like to see a more comprehensive plan for anti-litter than just straws.
Well, certainly our styrofoam containers too that our restaurants use. Mr. Palmetti?
Yep, certainly you're correct on the litter issue, it needs enforcement. You know, if you remember, was a year or so ago, we redid the ticketing process at the police request to address some of that, and they need to step up and really step up their game in that regard, so no disagreement there. But in terms of the environmental impact, yes, it's a small beginning, and there hopefully will be additional steps taken in regards to our environmental piece. But this is a nice start. It's something that's not going to hugely negatively impact our businesses, and as we move and we coordinate with our businesses, we can address some of the things such as styrofoam. We can address some of the things in plastic. And, you know, cities are leading on this. It's not states, it's not countries leading on these things. It's cities. Cities around the country, around the world are taking the lead on environmental issues. And if our state leaders, if our national leaders aren't going to do this, it's up to us to do it. And I think we owe it to our local environment and to our residents to at least hear this through and to consider this.
Yes, Mr. Bowden.
So to your comment earlier, why isn't the state taking action on this? There's actually an assembly bill that's on the floor right now. Assembly Bill 9994B is a boy, and its co-sponsor is our own Assemblyman Steck and Pat Fahey from Albany. And it says in the legislation requires restaurants only provide single-use plastic straws to customers when explicitly requested by the customer or when selected by the customers from a self-service dispenser. This is what I really feel the direction that we should be going into. Again, not just automatically giving the straw to the drink, but again, keep that as an option, unless Mr. Valtico specifically asked, can I have a straw? Then we would give it to him, but not to offer that straw. You're never gonna come with a straw, you know that, all the time. And again, the enforcement, as many of us have spoke about, I mean, how do we do as a small municipality? Listen, and I'm being very honest here, codes, we can't even keep up with stuff that codes is doing right now, folks. How do we expect to put this onus on our codes department again? Another burden, if you're not burden, but another issue to try to enforce. I did a lot of research as well, I'm sure everybody did. Starbucks was one of the groups that are actually getting rid of all their plastic straws, and they're redesigning their lids, their plastic lids. Well, did you know that new sippy cup lid that you talked about actually uses more plastic than their current lid and a straw combined? So now Starbucks is reconsidering this. So the sippy cup is not the answer to this whole thing. No, the lids I'm talking about, that Starbucks is gonna do.
I used to bring a sippy cup.
Oh, I remember, we had all those for kids, that was the safest way.
I was talking about a
Right.
sippy cup.
Yeah, but that sippy cup lid, though, is what I'm saying, that style where you gotta sip out of the cup as opposed to just putting it in the
I'm
straw.
talking about, we're not gonna have, I want us to get away from all of this. If we're gonna have anything, have it with paper. Don't have it be a one-use thing. Have it be where you take, I mean, I carry 2 sippy cups with me everywhere I went when my kids were little.
Well, again, I really think it should be a state or even a countywide issue. You know, how do we have the Glenvilles and the Niski and the Starbucks serving the straws, and yet our Starbucks here in Schenectady won't be able to do that. I really think the opt-in portion is the way of doing it. Opt-in if you have our businesses not to give the straw, but if you do want, when you ask, you provide the straw. The cost is there as well. Paper, believe it or not, is not as biodegradable as we think it is. There was an editorial in the Times Union where it talked about paper bags. Actually, we're talking about paper bags are more harmful in the environment than the plastic bags. They release a methane gas, harmful emissions, global warming, carbon dioxide. So look, it's all there, but should we take the first step? I'm not gonna argue. I mean, littering is littering, but I really like to see the option program as the state assembly bill is hopefully moving along. The Senate has one as well, but there's no co-sponsor on it, so that's why I think it's kind of stuck in their legislation now. And again, I just got this online yesterday, so it's pretty current. So that's my 2 cents for what it's worth.
Well, and I guess, Mr. Valentico, that brings another question that needs to be answered in that if the assembly bill goes through, what does that look like for local law for us and all of that, and the legal play out of those things, which, you know, if you could bring back in 2 weeks. And again, no reason not to call for public hearings, certainly. But I think there's some important questions and options that have been offered tonight. Did you have another comment, Mr. Colletti?
In regards to the state bill, I mean, certainly Mr. Steck is a leader, and no one can dispute that. But that bill doesn't go far enough. I mean, to sit there and have it opt out, I mean, when are we going to seriously address the issue of environmental issues and climate change? And if to sit there and say we're going to opt out, opt in, that's not going to seriously target the issue. And here's an opportunity for us to take a lead on something. And, you know, other municipalities around the area are starting to consider this. We saw SUNY Albany take this up, and they're going to have this on their campus after graduation. I've heard rumblings about Union College doing something similar. So this is an opportunity for us to really do something proactive about the environment. And it's something that we should really do. And by the time that state law passes, I mean, you're talking a year down the road. I mean, or more. You know, when are we going to address the climate change issue? And that's the real seriousness of this. And keep putting it out, I just think it's a major mistake.
Okay, other questions or comments? All right, so we'll find out if it's legal, first of all, and we'll find out how it'll play with any state law, and in the meantime, we'll call for a public hearing. Okay, so if I can have someone move that?
Just before we do this, I'm not opposed to this at all. I'm not opposed to this, and I'm not opposed to having a public hearing on it. Let's hear how the public feels about it. Maybe it'll make everybody's mind up one way or the other. So I'll definitely move this for a public hearing, and we'll see what the public has to say, and we can discuss this more before we go into the house.
Absolutely.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Thank you very much. And next we have a ceremonial resolution for Kiwanis. They will be celebrating their 100th anniversary. Although, as a Rotarian, I can say that we reached our 100th anniversary first. But we love our Kiwani, we love our Kiwani and friends. So, if I can have a motion, seconded by Ms. Porterfield. All those in favor?
Aye.
And then we also have a ceremonial resolution for the SEEP Center. Ms. Porterfield?
Certainly. Well, we know that the Seed Center, they just completed their first build from the ground up. It's platinum LEED, and it's also really energy efficient, so 100%.
Net zero.
Net zero. So I just, and if you haven't been there, it's a really nice house, but on top of that, they just let the young people bring to the program, and so I'd like to really give them some appreciation for that.
I will second it. Oh, I'm sorry. No, you seconded it. I was so excited. It was such a wonderful day.
You got caught up in the moment.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Motion to adjourn, please. Seconded by Mr. Riggi. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We adjourn.
All right, I'd like to call back to order Health and Recreation, and Mr. Riggi, as an item you'd like to discuss.
Yes, there's been an issue, especially in Bellevue, that there's 2 little league fields in the city of Schenectady. The Bellevue fields in just such disarray and disrepair that neighbors are complaining about it, and it's overgrown. As a matter of fact, one neighbor took it upon himself to cut the grass there, so it's cut. But the concession stand is falling, people are breaking in, people are using the dugouts for illicit activity, whatever it may be. So there's many complaints, and the trees around it are starting to fall into the field. And I know one neighbor in particular will probably come to the next council meeting to speak about this. But I think we have to decide, what are we gonna do with this? It is part of Hillhurst Park. Should the fences be taken down? I mean, it's something we have to consider, taken down, buildings demoed, which won't take much demo time, there's not much there. And just bring it back to what it was, have some trees planted there, and that's it, because right now, it's becoming a haven for a lot of bad things. It really looks bad. On top of everything, it just looks terrible. I wouldn't want to have a house in front of that backyard. I can tell you that. So I just want to bring to the council's attention. And the other field is the Michigan Avenue field. I've received complaints, I don't know if any other council people have, about the condition of the field and how it's not being kept. And I don't think our Parks Department can do it. I believe that Schenectady Little League should be doing it. They use it from time to time. And I understand volunteer groups, it's hard enough to get a few volunteers to do anything, so they can't do it. But again, we go to the Schenectady Little League field, that really should be, maybe it isn't old enough yet to be considered historical, but that's an historical site there. That's the home of the world champions. There's only so many world champions there. I think it started in 1947 or 48, the first world championship team, and Schenectady was one of those. So out of 70 or so world championship teams, Schenectady, New York is the home of the world championship team, and that's the home of the world championship where these kids played. So I think at some point, maybe it can be turned over and make it a requisite of the Parks Department, again, to have it at least cleaned up, maybe cordoned off, maybe a marker be placed there, because it's just sad to see it in that kind of disrepair. And again, with fences, and I'm so glad that the tennis courts in Bellevue and Hillhurst Park, the fences have been taken down, all that brush has been cleared out there, because doing neighborhood cleanups, you can cut those vines for 3 or 4 days, and you can't get all the vines out of the chain link fence. It can't happen. That's what's happening at Mount Schenectady Field too. It's really a mess, and it's sad to see that this has happened. But the Bellevue Field, definitely, we're gonna have to act on, I think, with that, and maybe think of something to do with the Schenectady Field at some point, because it is city property, and I think it's incumbent on us to look into this and to act some way. I just want to bring it up for some discussion, maybe put it on the agenda in the near future.
Yes.
This isn't the field that they just redid a couple of years ago, is it?
That's the one.
It's that same one?
That's the one. Upstate Premier Baseball sold us a bill of goods, and I was the first one that bought it. And they only used it for a couple of months, and they bailed out on it. It's a shame, because the Valley Cats put a brand new sign.
Well, and Blue Shield in
Yes.
northeastern New York too, and out there.
Michigan Avenue field too.
Yeah, they did the same thing the year before, 2 years before, yes.
That's
All
disappointing.
planned, and it's sad that it's
It
come
is.
to that. And there was a lot of money.
Person
involved
power
there.
went into
Yes.
that.
Yes, and I understand, and I don't want to get back to nasty emails again. There's not as many Little Leagues around anymore, Little League teams or kids that want to play Little League baseball. I understand that. But we have to deal with the property one way or the other, because that is parkland, the Bellevue one is, and I think where all the fields are considered parkland one way or the other. So it's something I think we really have to deal with. I'd really like to see the Michigan Avenue field deemed historic and be made kind of like a museum kind of thing, because there's people that have a lot of from that. I know my cousin Freddie passed last year. It was wonderful to see his Little League uniform all boxed and under glass. Just great to see, because that's important. I know maybe it's more important to me than anybody else, but I don't think it is, but that's quite an accomplishment that we had for Schenectady, New York. So it's just something I think we should think about and maybe move on at some point. So maybe in the future, we may able to get an after discussion, and maybe roll it around in your minds what we may be able to do or not do, and ask some questions. I'd appreciate that. But I think we're going to be hearing from one of the neighbors, I'm quite sure, at the next meeting. Because he was, just to give you some information, he applied for a home equity loan, and that got taken into consideration when he valued his house.
Oh, really?
Yes, because of that. Yes. So that's,
Any questions, concerns? So can we have that added 2 weeks and have someone from the Parks Department available? So we can ask some the options available. Okay, any other questions? Can I have a motion?
I move we adjourn.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Call to order claims. Accept, or entertain motion to go in executive session.
Second.
Porterfield, second by Ms. Carrasco.
Probably. We're in executive session, so you have to.